Welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. I am Ariana Summer, your host, and today I am honored to welcome a true pioneer in the field of health and essential fats, Udo Erasmus. You may know Udo as the author of the groundbreaking book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, a resource that has guided millions in understanding the critical role of fats in human health. But Udo is far more than a best-selling author. He is a biochemist, a health philosopher, and the founder of Udo's Choice, an award-winning line of organic oils, probiotics, and enzymes, including the very ones I keep in my own fridge and recommend to my friends and family. Udo's work spans decades of rigorous scientific research, personal transformation, and spiritual seeking. He's one of the earliest voices to advocate for omega-3s as essential to optimal health and one of the few who has consistently spoken out about the damage done by industrial processing of oils. But what moves me most is not just the science, but the soul behind it. Udo's personal journey from fleeing war as a child to facing profound suffering to developing a spiritual framework rooted in love and service infuses his work with a rare kind of depth and clarity. In today's conversation, we explore the nuanced truth behind seed oils and the backlash they've recently received in the wellness world. We look at how misinformation spreads, why context matters, and what the science really says about high quality, unrefined fats. We also dive into the inner path, what it means to listen to the body, to return to nature, and to let love be the guide in both healing and business. This is not merely a conversation about nutrition. It's a conversation about remembering what truly nourishes us, mind, body, and soul.
Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.
Udo, welcome to the Superhumanized podcast. I am so honored and so happy we get the chance to connect today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
Right now, I would like to zero in on some of the things that have made you a household name for many people because you're widely and wildly regarded as one of the leading voices in the science of fats and also their role in human health. Your publication, your book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, was very much ahead of its time and decades before mainstream nutrition even caught up with us. Because I even remember, I'm 48 now, when I was little, it was like, fats are bad. Can you walk us through what sparked your interest and also your deep commitment to understanding fats?
I got poisoned by pesticides in 1980. And I got poisoned because my marriage broke up and I wanted to kill something. So I took a job as a pesticide sprayer, knowing that the only reason we ever invented pesticides is to kill living things. Now, I couldn't kill people, but I basically killed everything else. And I was really careless. I walked over the lawns I sprayed with weed killers, barefoot, until the skin peeled off the bottom of my feet. And at that point, I said, okay, maybe I need to wear. So I wore rubber boots, bathing suit, because it was a summer job. And I was a blonde guy, light skin. I liked the tan, little vanity there. And it was a summer job. And I noticed the wind would blow the spray on my back. You feel it, right? And somebody even asked me one time, aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned? And I was 38. And I said, nah, I'm immune. Some people call that testosterone poisoning. It happens to young men who think they're invincible until they have their first big disaster, that self-created disaster. And then they start thinking about it. So I went to the doctor, said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? And she said, nothing. So we have the pesticides, we get to spray them, but we don't actually have anything to fix the problems that causes. And I then went to the people in the government who certified me to spray the pesticides. And they said, I want to come and look at your research, because they have all kinds of research, on pesticide poisoning. They wouldn't let me look at it. They said, oh, you probably just have a flu. because some of the symptoms of pesticide poisoning are there's only so many ways your body can react to toxic situations. And so I then went to Greenpeace, which started in Vancouver, which is where I live, right? And asked them, what do you know about pesticide poisoning? So they got me a stack of studies. They were like a big 18-inch stack, all of the research done on poisoning by pesticides. And I realized 60% of the pesticides we spray cause cancer. And I thought, it was like, oh God, I have cancer to look forward to. My palms started to sweat. You know how that happens when you get really nervous, your palms sweat?
I do.
And so then it was like, okay, now what do I do? I'm on my own. I had a really good background in biological sciences. And biological sciences is like about health. They don't call it that. But you're studying how normal creatures function in normal situations. So you learn a lot about how nature works. And health is somewhere in the realm of nature, because health was invented by life in nature. And you can't be healthy if you're not living in line with nature and your nature. And every time you get out of line, there's 10 different parts to it. We're not going to talk about today, but there's 10 different parts of it. And anytime you get out of line, that'll cost you something in health. And anytime you get back in line, you'll get something back in health. So I'm working on a book on total health based in nature and human nature. But so anyway, so I had the background. So I started looking through the medical journals, the Medline, the database. There were 16 million studies in that database at the time. Now there's 36 million. And of those, and I was looking at, okay, the body is made out of food. It's actually made out of food, water, air, and solar energy. But I was thinking food. Body's made out of food. So when something goes wrong with the body, what do? You have to raise your standards of food intake. Because 98% of your body, of the atoms in your body, are removed and replaced every year. And so when you raise your standard of food intake, you can rebuild 98% of your body to a higher standard in 1 year. That's why healing is possible. In fact, that's what healing is. Oh, I was like, okay, then let me find out, what do I need? How do I raise the standards? What is it? So I got into essential nutrients. And essential nutrients, I know that, but essential nutrients are nutrients that you can't make but have to live and be healthy, and therefore have to bring in from outside. Okay, so plants can make them, so they're not essential for plants, but you can't make them, so they're essential for you. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you don't get enough of any essential nutrient, you cannot stay healthy. Your health will deteriorate. You will get deficiency symptoms. They will get worse with time. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. These are the absolutely necessary building blocks for body construction and body function. And the third part of it is that if you're losing your health because you're not getting enough of an essential nutrient, but before you die, because death by definition is not reversible, if before you die you bring enough of that missing essential nutrient back into your diet, all of the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows how to make a body that works, provided we take responsibility at our mouth to make sure that all of the essential building blocks land in the body in optimum quantities so that life can use them to build us an optimally functioning body. Okay, that's the definition. And then you also you cannot call a nutrient essential until researchers have identified at least one vital biochemical reaction that requires that nutrient, and without which that vital biochemical reaction cannot take place. So a very precise definition, and makes it very powerful. It turns out that definition fits 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids from proteins, and 2 essential fatty acids that come from fats, or that come from oils, actually. So 42 of them, right? And so I'm reading all of this stuff and is starting to put things into practice. And the area of oils was the most confusing area. And see how I got there, but that take us to what's going on in the fats arena now. So I'm reading a study. It says omega-6 linoleic acid is an essential fatty acid by the definition I just gave you. Okay, you have to have it. You can't make it. You've got to bring it in from outside. If you don't get in enough long enough, you die. If you bring it back before you die, all your problems are reversed that come from not getting enough. Omega-6 is an essential fatty acid. The very next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And my head exploded. It's, wait a minute, you can't have it both ways. You can't, I'm supposed to have this. I must have this so it can give me cancer and kill me? What? It was nuts. And I assumed that these guys were both honest and reporting science. That's not always true these days, but this is like in 1981, 82. So I said, okay, there must be something I'm missing here because you can't have it both ways. This is not. And it was like trying to figure out that contradiction that made me look deeper into how oils are made. And so I found out, first of all, that omega-3 and omega-6, alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid, plant-based essential fatty acids, both essential nutrients. And they are the most sensitive of all of our nutrients. They're damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. And the omega-3 essential fatty acid is 5 times more sensitive to this damage than the omega-6. Now, the omega-6, they said, gives you cancer, kills you. The omega-3 then would have to be even 5 times worse. And so I'm reading all this. Then I find out 99% of the population does not get enough omega-3 for optimum health. And then I'm telling the story in a completely different way. But so fats were the most confusing area. And it was at the height of fat phobia. This is like 1980, 1981. And so I'm trying to figure out how to resolve this contradiction. And in that, found out more information and came to a point where I found out that in order to get a long shelf life for an oil that by nature has the shortest shelf life, the industry figured out if we treat it with sodium hydroxide, a very corrosive base, and then we treat it with phosphoric acid, a very corrosive acid, and then we bleach it so the color molecules are removed because they absorb light and the light then damages the oil. And then it goes rancid when it's been bleached. Now it smells bad, so now we have to deodorize it. And to deodorize it, we have to heat it to frying temperature for 30 minutes to blow off the rancid molecules. That's how they make oils in order to get a long shelf life for the nutrients that by nature have the shortest shelf life. And then you end up with a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil. You can't tell what it came from because all the taste molecules are out, the color molecules are out. Then they put it in a plastic bottle. Now that there's a problem with that too. Oils and plastics have a similar chemistry. And oil molecules, when you put them in a bottle, in a plastic bottle, they swell the plastic and then plastic leaches into the oil. And so I said, okay, there's something wrong here. So I said, okay, let me talk to the guys who do all this work. And I called the American Oil Chemist Society. They're in Champaign, Illinois. That's the headquarters of the oil industry. And when I got somebody on the line, I said, I want to talk to one of your research people. Because you talk to the research people, they give you honest answers. So he gets on the line and I said, so when you know that this does damage to, I found out that in this processing, 0.5 to 1% of the oil molecules are damaged. turned from something natural into something unnatural. Turned from something that life made a program to break down to something that never existed in nature, and life therefore never made a program to break it down. So that's not good. So I said to him, so when you know that this processing you do does damage to the oil, why do you do that? And he says, one of the reasons we do it is because we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. And in my head, I'm going, oh, the other 50% of pesticides stays in the oil? I didn't even know at that point that there were pesticides in oils.
Right.
Because when I studied lipids, fats in grad studies at the university, nobody ever talked about pesticides. Yeah. And they don't tend to talk about pesticides in the oil, although they should. Because if they start saying, oh, by the way, did you know there's pesticides in your oils? Then the oil industry will not give them grants to do their research. So certain things don't get talked about, right? So all this going on in my head, and I say to him, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Because then you don't have a pesticide problem to clean up at a frying temperature. Long silence at the other end of the phone. It was so quiet. And I don't know how long, but it seemed like a really long time. Could have been just 3 seconds. But then he came back and he was really angry. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is 99% good. It's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So I'm saying, okay, maybe I'm overreacting. It's only 1%. So then we have a saying, when in doubt, you know that saying? When in doubt, do the math.
No, I did not.
When in doubt, do the math. Why? Because numbers don't lie. That's the idea, right? So I said, okay, so let me see. Maybe I'm overreacting. So question I ask is, if I have a tablespoon of an oil that has been 1% damaged by the processing, this is before you fry it and wreck it way more, okay? But before you fry it, it's 1% damaged by the processing. How many damaged molecules are going to be in that tablespoon of oil? And I'm going to ask you to answer that question because you don't have a basis for figuring that out.
No, zero.
Just like most everybody. You'll see why this will be really instructive for your audience.
Yes, for sure. And I'm going to take a wild guess, also prefacing it by, I don't even know, I couldn't even guess how many molecules of the oil total would fit, let's say, on a tablespoon.
Yeah, that's the issue. That is the issue for everybody. We don't know how big a molecule is.
Well, let me take a wild guess that I'm pretty sure also be wildly wrong, but I'm happy to do it. So I'm going to guess that there's 3 million molecules in a tablespoon.
Okay. It's good.
Okay.
How many zeros in 3 million?
Yeah, so we would have 6 zeros.
6 zeros. So would you like to know the actual number?
Yes, please.
It's a 6 followed by 19 zeros.
Wow.
So your estimate is, so it's 60 quintillion damaged molecules. Your estimate, 13 zeros too low. Now 13 zeros is 3 is 1,000, 6 is 1,000,000, 9 is 1 billion, 12 is 1 trillion, and yours is basically 20 trillion times too low.
Right.
20 trillion times lower than it actually is. Now here's the reason.
Pardon me, Udo, I'm so sorry. Somebody just came to the clinic.
Okay, so so the actual number of damaged molecules is 20 trillion times higher than your estimate.
It's insane.
Now, you're like in everybody else. Most people don't know how to count molecules. They don't know the size of the molecules. There's a mathematical formula for doing that, but you have to have a chemistry degree to even have heard of it, right? So then I say, okay, look, you're at the airport. You're going to fly home for the holidays, see the people you love. You have a boarding pass. and you're about to get on the airplane, and somebody taps you on the shoulder, and you turn around, and it's Mr. Truth Teller. He only ever tells you the truth and says, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying on this trip home is 20 trillion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the airplane?
Yeah, yeah.
I asked him I was in Ireland. I said, I would canoe back to Canada if I found that out. Right?
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is that we are doing something to ourselves that is 20 trillion times worse for us than we think it is, because we don't have a basis for making a good assessment. And so the question then is this a good reason for rethinking what you do with oils? Now, we're not only having that 1%, 60 quintillion damaged molecules, which, by the way, is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. More than 1 million damaged molecules in 1 tablespoon. Most people use 2 to 4 a day.
Exactly.
Then we fry them. You have to multiply that by another 3 to 6 times, because when you fry, light, oxygen, and heat damage the oil all at the same time. Plus, you're burning the food. And so I say to people, fried foods, fry health, fried oils, fry health. Okay? Then you get plastic in the oil, and you have pesticides in the oil, and you do it for 30 years. So the amount of stuff you've put into your body in 30 years, you got to multiply that number by another 11,000, which is about the number of days in 30 years.
And Udo, you said something before that I just want to tie into real quickly when you spoke about the young human male, testosterone fueled, and I'm immune. And then later something pops up because of certain behaviors. Because what you were just referencing is this damage that is constantly done on a daily basis to a body and over decades, because these are deeply ingrained habits that we have. This is how we cook. This is how we eat. We don't know any better. A lot of us don't before some educates us or expose the truth to us. But this ties into this, oh, I was fine. And then all of a sudden, quote, all of a sudden, end of quote, I got XYZ. Where in truth, it was not all of a sudden, but it was a many years or decades buildup of damage. Can you tell us some of the most pervasive issues that arise from what you have just shared with us?
Yeah, first of all, what you're saying, when it happens all of a sudden, we call that the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? Yeah. But you had to load it up with all kinds of stuff before the straw finally broke the... Yeah, the best way to summarize it is more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from making the oil change that your body needs, where you dump the dirty oils, the damaged oils, and you replace them with oils that are made with health in mind. And which is, by the way, when I found all of that out, my thought to myself was, I can't get healthy. I've been poisoned by pesticides. I can't get healthy on oils like this. We should make oils with health in mind. Not with shelf life in mind, but with health with shelf life, with health in mind. So then the question is, how do you do that? That's simple. Protect them from light, from oxygen, and from heat, the 3 damaging influences. From the time the oil is in a seed or a nut, protected by nature's packaging, through the pressing, the filtering, the settling, the filling process, till it's in a brown glass bottle, in a box, nitrogen flushed, in the fridge, in the factory. So you have to make a super tight production system. And I put that together.
Yes.
And I'm in the health food trades Hall of Fame for starting an industry of making oils with health in mind.
Yes. And I want to quote something real quick, Udo, and I'd like your take on this, but I have taken these oils for many years, and I credit them with many health benefits. Sometimes, not often, but a couple of times, actually had one of these exact bottles in the back of my fridge, and for travel reasons or whatever, forgotten about it. And within a year or more, when I would look at that bottle, pull it out and open it and sniff it, it smelled pristine. It tasted pristine. So now one should maybe still not keep it for such a long time, but I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed.
Yeah, I've had oil that we made with health in mind that was in the fridge for 14 months after I opened it, but I didn't open and close it. So it just got opened and it was still okay.
Yeah.
What we say to people is if it's closed, 2 years.
Mhm.
If you freeze it, 5 years. If you freeze it solid, it shrinks. They won't break the glass bottles. 5 years. Once you open it, use it up within 8 weeks, because once you open it, air gets in, and slowly the oxygen in the air starts to make the oil go rancid. But it's a slow process, and if you're keeping it refrigerated. If it was open, and you open and close it, and open and closed it, and it was sitting on your kitchen counter, you would have smelled the rancidity. You would have tasted the rancidity. So they're oils. And so what we say to people is, okay, get the oil, use 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, or a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, more in winter, less in summer, until your skin becomes soft and velvety, because that's how you find out, that's how you know you have optimized your intake, because your skin gets them last and loses them first, because nature gives inner organs, brain, heart, liver, priority on the essential fatty acids. You can live with dry skin, but you can't live if your liver, your brain, or your heart dried out. Okay?
Exactly.
So that's how you know optimum. And that's around 50 tablespoon per 50 parts of body weight per day. In winter, it's higher than in summer, because in winter, you will burn some of that oil for heat to keep warm. And one of the things about omega-3s, they make you less cold sensitive. I used to be super sensitive to cold weather. And when I started using the oil, I now go around outside in a t-shirt in winter.
And which brings own health benefits, cold exposure.
Which also,
right?
it does.
Yeah.
I do not do plunges, but I sleep cold. Like, I don't heat my bedroom, because you sleep better when it's cold. You want to stay warm, but you want to be in a cold environment. But every cell needs the essential fatty acids, every cell in your body. And they play a structural part in your cell membranes, but they also make all of your receptors work more effectively on your cell surface. And they increase oxygen metabolism, energy production, and energy. So we've worked with athletes that if they do their sport to exhaustion, both strength and endurance sports, within a month of starting on a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of the blend that we put together, because omega-3 and 6 need to have the right ratio to each other, because they compete and can crowd each other out if the ratio is not right. When they did their sport to exhaustion, within 30 days, they had 40 to 60% increase in performance. Yeah. They did nothing. This was not based on a good exercise program. This was just based on getting the fuels that increase. So it takes you longer to get tired. You recover from fatigue quicker. You heal quicker, a third to half the time. And they slept better, and their skin was nicer, and they could build muscle faster when they worked out. In pregnancy, there's research that shows super important during pregnancy, because when a woman is pregnant, she has one brain that's 60% fat when you take the water out of it. So we're fatheads. So that's a compliment. So 60% of the water reduced brain is fats. So it's the fat richest organ other than fat cells. And they elevate mood, lift depression, increase IQ, improve focus and learning. So very good for brain function. They also can improve vision. When a woman is pregnant, she needs to maintain her brain, and she needs to build a whole other brain in her womb. So very important for women to get enough of the essential fatty acids, because if they don't, and most women don't, because 99% don't get enough omega-3, so they've shown that each child gets less of the essential fatty acids than the previous child. So IQ goes down with birth order because of that. Each child depletes the mother further, and they think it's the reason why women get 2 to 15 times more fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, depression, collagen, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases than men do, because men never get pregnant, so they never get depleted the way women get depleted. And so the research say, what the research is telling us, women need to make sure they get a reliable source of both essential fatty acids, which means made with health in mind, in their diet, both for their own health and for the health of their children.
Yes. And Udo, you just touched upon something that I would like to ask you about, because in my circle of friends, as well as questions that reach me via social media or via the website for this podcast, there's quite a lot of people who are dealing with what is classified under chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, especially since COVID. A lot of people are dealing with what is classified as long COVID. And especially when it comes to symptoms like brain fog and just incredible fatigue, where people can't function like they used to function normally anymore. Do you have any personal anecdotes or experiences with regard to how oils may help restore health or better health levels?
It goes back to if you eat the way you're supposed to be eating. And this is a whole other conversation, but in nature, every creature that eats its food fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, seasonal mostly, although you can store nuts and tubers for winter, and for humans, mostly plant-based. So anybody who has the problems that you're talking about, chronic fatigue, low energy, fog, brain fog, you have to ask them, where are you in your food intake? Because your body is made out of food, water, air, and solar energy, right? So where are you in comparison to fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, seasonal, and mostly plant-based? Where are you? Because in the gap between how nature said we should be eating and what you're doing, in that gap, sometimes you call it the processing gap, or in that gap is where most of our problems come from. Now, one of the things about COVID, people talked about a cytokine storm that takes place in your lungs. And it hasn't made the news very much, but the cytokines that cause all of those problems in the lungs are made from omega-6 essential fatty acid. And 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3. And the cytokines made from omega-3 are anti-inflammatory. So you get inflammation from these cytokines, and you're missing the omega-3s that block that and protect you from it. So it's just one example, right? Now, is omega-3 the cure for all of that? No. But you can say more health problems come from damaged oil than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from getting your oils right than any other part of nutrition. And you're dealing with, one is the processing damage, the second one is omega-3/6 ratio. They compete in the body for enzymes that convert them into hormone-like regulating substances. And if you get too much of one, it'll crowd out the others. And if you get too much of the other, it'll crowd out the one. You need to get that ratio right. Our ratio right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of between 10 and 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3. Way off. way off.
Yeah.
So we work with the ratio of twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. That's the ratio we work with in the blend that I work with. And why is that? Because almost everybody doesn't get enough omega-3s. And if you get twice as much omega-3 as omega-6, you will never become deficient in either of them. And you will favor the ones that are anti-inflammatory, and inflammation causes just about every degenerative condition we have. I'm going to be 83 next week. I'm going to be 83. I have zero pain in any of my joints. And except when I bang into something, because I do that. I do gardening jobs and stuff like that, right? And when I was 38, I had arthritis in my knees. Wasn't really severe, but whenever I put pressure on my knees, they hurt.
Yes.
I got nothing now.
And the physical is one thing. The other thing I just really want to point out right here is also your energy, your vibrancy, and your brain. Clearly, your cognitive functions, you're just firing.
It's still firing on at least 2 cylinders.
More than that, I would say, Udo. You are absolutely a testimony to this. And as I mentioned before, from my own experience, I corroborate everything you said with regards to the benefits. There's something that has bothered me in the last years, and I'm certain this is something you've come across as well.
I know where we're going. I know where we're going now.
I know.
Go ahead.
So especially in the wellness community, but now also seeping into the mainstream for about a year, there's been a strong backlash against seed oils. And some argue, they're inherently inflammatory, while others like yourself point out that not all seed oils are created equal. So I would like to know from you, how do you respond to the criticism of seed oils, and what is the actual deeper truth people are completely missing when they're making these broad claims?
Okay, so the word in the village is don't use seed oil because they're toxic, and don't use omega-6s because they're toxic. And I have to say, omega-6 is an essential nutrient. Now, where this originates, this crazy idea originates, is from people who, there was a guy in 1989. I started working with flax oil in 1986, and then went to the blend that's better balanced in 1994. In 1989, this guy who was a retired professor from the University of Oregon and had a following and had some ideas about things, he wrote something about me where he said that I was in bed with Archer Daniel Midland, which is one of the big oil companies, based on nothing. I actually was broke when I wrote the book, and I moved in with my mother when I was 41 to get the book done on a handheld, non-electric, portable typewriter, right? And that came out in 1986. Other than that one conversation I had with the guy from the American Oil Chemist Society, I have never been part of any of that. But he made the assumption that I was doing this, and he said, and he also said that if you take enough B vitamins, you don't need any essential fatty acids. There were about 6,000 studies in 1989 that said he was wrong. So there are some people who've picked that up from him. And what's interesting to me about it, I've been doing this work for 45 years, right? There's been books about not using omega-6s and seed oils through that time. It's especially powerful right now, especially loud right now, not powerful, but loud right now. But there have been books like that, and not a single author of any of those books, and there have probably been about 20 books, not a single one of any of those authors has ever talked to me. Now, whatever they say about me, they don't know what I'm doing. They've never talked to me. And my view is that what happens is, okay, see, the oils get damaged, 1%. 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. So they use these damaged oils in research, and they see some negative results. And so they say, oh, seed oils, omega-6, toxic. And they're blaming seed oils and omega-6s, which are essential for health, for what should be blamed on the damage done to them by the processing or in the frying pan. And so what that means is all of these people who say this have not done their homework. Because I saw the contradiction. I told you before, I saw the contradiction. He said, okay, there must be something else going on. That made me look deeper into how oils are made. And these people have never done that homework. So neither have they talked to me, and I have not hidden. I've been to 40 countries. I've given 10,000 lectures. So I have not been hiding. I have a book on it. And now it's even in the government, and I'm actually trying to get a hold of those people, and I'd like to straighten them out. I would love to have one conversation with RFK.
Yeah.
And if you can arrange it, please do. I'd love to do that because he's being misinformed. He's not a chemist. He's a lawyer. He's a smart guy. He's pretty grounded, in my opinion. And I want to at least tell him the story the way I understand it, and to make the distinction between oils that are damaged by processing and damaged in the frying pan versus oils made with health in mind. Because the issue is the processing, the issue is the damage, the issue is not the omega-6s, the issue is not seed oils, but it's the processing damage that causes the problems. By the way, I'm going to be 83, I told you, next week, right? 14th of May. I use my oil every day. And the way I use it is I get tahini, sesame tahini. I dump the sesame oil because it only has omega-6s in it. I put in my oil because it has omega-3 and omega-6 in the right ratio. And then I mix it all up, and then I put in lots of spices, turmeric and cayenne and ginger and black seed and cloves and a bunch of other stuff, curry. So I put in a bunch of spices and I mix it all up, and that's my dip for my raw vegetables. So I'll dip. I love broccoli. Unlike George W.H. Bush, who didn't like broccoli and had Graves' disease, I love broccoli. So I dip the broccoli and I eat it that way. It's very simple, but I use my oil every day. My skin is good, pretty good. I'm an old guy, but my skin is pretty good. My energy is good. I take down trees sometimes in gardening jobs. I can do a serious person's full-time daily job when necessary.
Yeah.
I don't do that all the time, but and I have lots of energy. I sleep really well. So I don't have a single problem, a single health problem, but I also pay attention. So this idea of fresh, whole, raw, organic, in season, locally grown, I don't do it all because I eat oranges. They don't grow in Vancouver. And I eat apples in summer. They don't grow in summer in Vancouver. But fresh, whole, raw, organic, I'm pretty much on that. And it makes a difference.
It's vital.
It makes a difference. Now, I didn't always eat that way, and I wasn't always plant-based. I'm just paying attention to what my body tells me. And I have to tell you, I love being alive so much. It's so beautiful, like the dust and water and solar energy and air can be mixed up into this and enjoy all of what the human experience is. And because I love the experience, I want to hang around as long as I can. And how do you do that? You got to live in line with nature and your nature.
Yes, you do. You don't. I have a spark. You're going to be around for quite a while. And to conclude this beautiful conversation, because we've talked about physical health, about mental health, there is also, as you very well know, a spiritual dimension to nutrition. And what I love about your work is that it bridges science and also spirit. I have I heard you talk about food as sacred and also of oils as carriers of light. And that's not something you often hear.
Yeah.
Oil, yes.
Let me just say a little bit about it as a teaser, because I
Yeah.
think we're going to do this as a longer piece if you want to do it, right?
I would.
So omega-3 is the highest energy molecule of all of our nutritional molecules. It has 9 calories per gram, like fats do, but it increases oxygen metabolism and energy production. Okay? So some people call it the God molecule because it has so much energy in it. And the thing is that what we call energy and what some people call God is actually solar energy. You know that solar energy runs the planet. That's the power that powers all living things on the planet, pretty much all living things on the planet, right? Now, so it shines from the sun. You can't go close to the sun because it's 15 million degrees. You would melt your toenails if you got too close. But it's filtered through 93 million miles. Then it's filtered through Earth's atmosphere. Then it's filtered into plants. And the plants, they blow off the green light, but they absorb the rest of it. And in the plants, that solar energy fraction activates electrons, which then bond between atoms and turn atoms into molecules. And that solar energy fraction is stored in the bond. Now you eat that as food, and then in your cells, those bonds get broken and that solar energy is released. And guess what we call it now? Oh, we call it life. Solar energy fraction is life. And life is actually the master in your body. Life is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient in your body. What does that mean? Everywhere present, all-knowing, all-powerful in your body. That's a definition of God. And now we're talking science, and God is completely the same thing.
Yeah.
Whoa, how cool is that?
It's very cool. And I love how you have placed this teaser, Udo. And I very much look forward to this follow-up conversation because I know even with the oils, we've just scraped the tip of the iceberg. But before we hit record today, we just started talking about so many things where I was like, this man resonates with me. I want to hear more about what he has to say. Just the beginning right now. I am so pleased that we got to connect and exchange today. And lots of food for thought also for me. Thank you for exposing me to something that I had no idea about. And I am just very grateful you came on the show today. For people who want to learn more about you, dive deeper into your work or connect with you, how can they do?
I have a website called udoerasmus.com. We just are posting the book, Your Body Needs an Oil Change. And it's mostly ebook, but you can print on demand. So I think that's just getting done by the time you post this. I'm sure it'll be online. But actually, I'm not hard to find because my name is so strange, Udo Erasmus. If you know how to spell it, I show up on the first page of Google. How good is that? I have a YouTube channel under Udo Erasmus. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I play on Facebook quite a bit. So I'm not hard to find. And if you want, I have some of my podcasts on the website as well. And all works in progress because we're gearing up for some really cool stuff. I would like this message that I just gave you a teaser for. I would like that message to get to 8 billion people. I think we could all live so much better than we do. And because I was born in a war and I know how bad it can get when we're stupid, I want to do what I can to at least let people know what I've learned and how they can make their life unbelievably beautiful. Because life by nature is unbelievably beautiful.
Wonderful closing words. Thank you, Udo. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. I'll make sure to put all of what you mentioned into the show notes. I'll start that again. James, you'll need to cut that out. That was my alarm. Wonderful closing words, Udo. And I'll make sure to put everything you said into the show notes so people can connect with you and with all of the resources. And I very much look forward to continuing this beautiful conversation with you. Much gratitude.
Cool. Thank you, Aria.